And good evening, creatures, and welcome to the Graveyard Shift Horror Podcast. I'm your host, Morticia.
And I'm Brandon Balor.
And this is week 2 of our 31 Days of Halloween challenge, which has been so much fun so far, and this week is going to be super fun because we're starting with the 50s and, working our way towards my favorite, the slasher films.
Mm-hmm. We do get into slashers a little bit this week with Psycho, but we really delve deep into the slashers come next week.
Oh, yeah, and, Psycho is, one of the pretty much the beginning of the slasher franchise, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, it was the first true, what we think of when we think of slashers, it was the first. But we'll talk about that more in a little bit.
Oh, yeah. But we start with, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Hammer horror films, but we start with Dracula in 1958, starring Christopher Lee as Dracula.
Mm-hmm. Christopher Lee and then Peter Cushing as Van Helsing. And for those of you, obviously this is a horror podcast, so I know you guys probably know about them from horror movies, but when I think of them, I think more so Star Wars. Yep. I think of Dooku and Tarkin.
Tarkin, yep.
Same here. When I was seeing Peter Cushing, I was still thinking, "You may fire when ready."
Same here, and like I said to you, I don't know when I told you, but I saw Star Wars before I actually saw any of the Hammer movies, which is weird because I'm such a big horror fan, but I love Star Wars too.
Yes, of course.
So when I heard they were classic horror actors in England, I was like, that's so awesome. But this is a really good take on the Dracula story. It's a little different.
It is a little bit different from
especially how it begins too.
Yeah. I mean, there are some differences from the Universal version, but both versions are very good.
And they are phenomenal. And I would have to say it's probably one of my favorite Dracula takes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And we don't have it on the list. For the 31 days, but maybe we'll watch it kind of as a one-off. Some of the sequels are also very good.
Yep, Dracula, Prince of Darkness was great.
Yeah, that
when
was
Dracula
a really
comes
good one.
back to life.
Yeah.
And I feel kind of like a putz because I saw that before the first one.
Well, yeah, I think we both did, actually.
We did, but honestly, they did show scenes at the beginning from the first one.
It was basically
flashbacks
supposed to be a direct sequel, and they basically caught you up on what happened at the very beginning. So if you haven't seen either of those, definitely go check both of those out.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't too lost, and they're good, so definitely check them out. What would you say your rating would be?
I would give it a 5.
I would give it a 5 too because it's gorier than what your average Dracula film.
Well, it also helps that it was in color.
It does, and that was pretty neat too for a colorized version of Dracula.
I always wondered, we should have looked this up for this, but I wonder why Hammer and the British companies did colorized movies so early as compared to the American.
I'm thinking it might be I don't know, and you guys, listeners could correct me if I'm wrong, but it might have been a budget thing back then. I don't know.
You think the British companies had more money to spend?
I don't really know for sure, but it's something I've always wondered, and I'm actually really curious.
Because we kind of laughed about it when we were doing this. We watched this one, and then we watched The Mummy, which we'll talk about in a second. And then we went back to, what is it, Psycho? Or no, House on Haunted Hill. And we went back to black and white. So it was we had 2 movies of color, and then we went back to black and white for a while.
Don't forget we watched the colorized version of The Birds.
We did.
The colorized version of The Birds. And that was actually filmed black and white. Mm-hmm. But colorized. So I'm not sure if that one counts.
I don't know. That one's kind of a both.
Yeah. And we got off topic, but that's okay, it happens.
That happens.
Yeah, I would have to rate it a 5. Now for the next one, The Mummy, which is also a Hammer film, as we mentioned before, 1959. It was a really good one, actually. I was surprised. I thought, like, it would be kind of dreary for some reason. I don't know why.
Why?
Like, just kind of, like, I don't know. Like, because, while I love the original Universal Monsters version of The Mummy, it was kind of, slow in parts, and a little dreary in some parts.
I mean, but I think that's because it was, it's more story-based, for The Mummy. The big difference between the Hammer version and the Universal version is that in the Universal version, the mummy takes the form of a human.
He basically looks like, he goes from, looking like a mummy to looking like what he might have looked like as a human.
Yeah. Whereas in the Hammer version, he actually does look like a mummy.
He does, yeah. Like the gauze, the wrapping, everything, like to the T.
Yeah.
And also that one stars Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. Yep. Christopher Lee, I believe, played the mummy. We were trying to figure that out and try to spot him in the film, but he might have been the mummy.
I believe he was.
Peter Cushing, of course, played, the hero of the story.
Yeah.
Which
is so weird.
Yeah. I know, because every time you look at him, it's that creepy old man from Star Wars.
With those heavily indented cheeks.
Yeah. Guy was pretty cool, though. Pretty good actor.
Oh, yeah.
Creepy, though. He would always creep me out when I was a kid when I watched Star Wars. I'm not going to lie to you. So it makes sense that he's a horror actor. But the story is, somewhat similar. It's the same, only completely different from the American, version.
Well,
the Universal version.
I think it seems to me...
I don't really even think it's a remake. I think it's its own,
It
movie.
seemed to me like it went more in depth on the Egyptian front.
Yeah, it did.
Like, it stayed in Egypt much longer in the Hammer version than in the Universal version.
You're right, and some similarities is, like, the woman... The human woman, Peter Cushing's wife in it, she resembled his lost love from when he was, when he was alive so many years ago, and that's something similar, very similar from the the Universal Monster Mummy, where Boris Karloff, resembled the princess in the human girl's form. Yeah. And that's something that, like, I like seeing is basically Hammer's take on that film. And it was really, pretty genius. And it was also gory, too.
Oh, yeah.
It was gory. It actually made me jump in some parts, which is weird for me.
Yeah. I think I remember you jumping at one point. I was like, wow, you actually jumped at a point?
And it was early in the morning, too, when we watched it. So that's even weirder. But, what would your rating for the film be?
I'd give it a 5.
I would give it a 5, too. And one more question I have about it for you.
Okay.
Who do you like better? Boris Karloff as the mummy or Christopher Lee?
I think in the creepiness factor, just because... Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it didn't seem, especially because he was all taped up and everything, did the mummy even really talk much at all in the Hammer version? I don't think he talked at all.
No, I don't think so.
So, on that creepiness level, both on a level of you didn't, like, if you first saw it, you didn't know that was the mummy, and also just Boris Karloff's very creepy voice that he put on.
Very creepy and iconic.
I think I have to go with Boris Karloff, but
I would have to agree.
But Christopher Lee definitely did a great job.
He did a great job. He did a great job. He was creepy, he was your average mummy in the gauze and the wrapping, like I said before. And that's kind of what I liked about this one a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I would have to give it a 5 as well. Now we're on day 2.
Mm-hmm.
Day 2 we had, very popular film and horror, House on Haunted Hill, 1959, starring Vincent Price, which is one of my favorite horror actors, and he is one of the faces of horror.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's, one of my favorite actors.
And this is the first, while this only had one, mini gag, this is the first of 3 straight movies that we watched that had, had gimmicks involved with them.
Yeah, and I think it was a skeleton.
Yeah, it was
in the
a skeleton
audience
that would fly down from the rafters.
Yeah, and I would love to have seen that in a theater.
Apparently, when I was looking it up, getting the prep work done for the show. Apparently, there's a theater in Jersey City that has done it.
Really?
That set it up and everything.
Yeah, because remember I was mentioning when we were watching it that I would have loved to have, experienced something like that. That's really cool. That's one thing I love about director William Castle. He did all those, all those gimmick, films. And it kind of reminds me of the 3D glasses thing.
Oh, yeah.
But, it was, more...
The closest I've ever been to anything like that, and this freaked me out, so I could only imagine how it would have been with, some of the things that we'll talk about on the next one with the Tingler, some of the gimmicks for that one. This creeped me out enough as is. I could only imagine how I would have been, especially as a kid, if I went to go see the Tingler. But at Disney, back when I went, and this was a while back, they had this thing called Honey, I Shrunk the Audience.
I've heard of that, yeah.
And they had, some gimmick stuff, and one of them was, mice were running, throughout the floor, and they had something that tickled your foot or something, and it freaked me the hell out. And I had my feet up for the rest of the show.
Oh my god! So you didn't want to experience the rats crawling?
No, I did not. I did not want to have mice crawling around my feet. No, I'll pass.
I don't want to do that now. It wouldn't bother me.
Oh, I know it wouldn't bother you.
But actually, a very interesting fact about House on Haunted Hill. I love your story, by the way. Now you're making me want to go to Disney more than I wanted to before. Now I want to go even more.
I don't even know if it even exists anymore. Probably
not. Sorry for trailing off there.
That happens.
It happens. Alfred Hitchcock actually was inspired by House on Haunted Hill to make Psycho. And I actually didn't know this before until when we were doing our prep work, you mentioned something about it.
Yeah, I noticed it. He said, it said that he was, he was intrigued because of how well it did at the box office. And that's what inspired him to do Psycho, to get into horror, and because he realized that it could make money.
That's really fascinating, and Alfred Hitchcock, he's very good at writing horror. He's very good at writing horror, and yeah, that's awesome. I didn't even know that when we were doing the prep work. I was like, wow, that's interesting. But House on Haunted Hill, basically, it's about this guy who has a group of people, close people that he probably knows in real life, work related and stuff. He invited them to this little, house party at this mansion on a hill, and it's supposed to be haunted. And he tells them, he claims that if you could survive one night in the house, you'll get paid, such and such, however much money. I forget how much it was. But everybody, they came to the house not really expecting it to be haunted, and then, people start getting scared, there's murders and stuff like that, and eventually you start to question if it's really haunted or not, but, I don't really want to spoil anything for people who haven't seen it, so I'm not going to say anything further about what I know. But just, if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's really good.
Yeah.
I would have to give it like a 4 out of 5. I would have to say.
Yeah, I'll give it that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, just because I don't want to say anything about it, so I'll let, if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, go check it out. It's very easy to find, too.
It's very easy to find. It's really, Vincent Price is a great actor. It's really creepy. It did have some jump scares in it.
Mm-hmm.
It did.
Oh, yeah.
Especially towards the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And we're back. Sorry about that. My dog heard a noise and started barking at something. I don't know what it was. Something outside.
Crazy dog.
But it happens, I guess.
Yeah. It's happened to me plenty of times on other shows.
Yeah, you've told me stories. But I guess, my dog's a celebrity now.
Mm-hmm. He likes to be involved.
That's okay. Well, back to what we were talking about before about House on Haunted Hill. What would you rate it as?
I would give it a 4.
I would have to give it. That's right.
We finished talking about House on Haunted Hill.
We had to completely reset up and everything.
Yeah. So now we're on to
the Tingler 1959.
The Tingler, which is another very gimmicked movie.
And again, like we said in the last episode, he was in a film class and he showed me all these horror movies I've never seen before. The Tingler was one, another one of those that he showed me, and it was interesting. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing, and we've talked about it amongst ourselves before, I would love to see, even though it would probably freak me out like we were talking about before when I saw Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, I'm sure it would freak me out and it would be, really crazy. But I would love to be able to go and see the Tingler with the effects.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that because it has, like you said when you experienced it in Disney, I think it's something scurries across your feet while you're in the audience.
Well, I think they do when the Tinglers, like when the thing completely turns off and they're saying the Tingler's loose. I think they do have something like that, but it's also like based on what I read. The chairs vibrate or something.
Yeah, and apparently in order to get it to stop, you have to scream as loud as you can.
Yeah.
Because that's the concept of the movie. It's actually a very interesting concept, and William Castle's actually he's one of those very original horror writers of the day, and in my opinion, I thought this was very interesting and horrifying concept of fear.
Oh, yeah.
Very horrifying concept of fear.
Not giving too much away, but basically the concept within the movie is that, fear is a living organism within you called the Tingler.
And it's connected to your spinal cord.
To your spine. So, it's a very interesting concept. It's a very fun movie. If you've never seen it, definitely go check it out.
Yeah, Vincent Price again steals the show, and he doesn't really play a hero or a villain. He's just very curious scientist.
Yeah, he kind of takes drastic measures
to do certain things in his experiments
to get the Tingler, but. It's all for science, so I guess you'd say he's neutral.
I will have to say, if you've ever wondered what Vincent Price on acid would be like, definitely watch this movie. Without giving too much away, although I probably gave away,
You gave away a little bit, not too much.
But it's hilarious. I mean, not how he acts, but...
No.
Just check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have to give it a 5
out
of
definitely.
5.
Oh, definitely.
I really enjoyed this one because it was such an original concept, something I've never seen before in horror. It's wow, somebody actually came up with this and it was genius.
Yeah.
And I would actually like to have, kind of like an action figure or like a model of the
Tingler. Yeah, that would actually be pretty cool.
It's creepy. It's like a fat centipede looking thing. It's like,
yeah,
I don't really know how to describe it, but
yeah, I don't know how to fully describe it either.
Something you don't want to exist.
No,
let's just say that.
No, and it's got these like. It had these, like, claw... I don't know if they were claws or, like...
They look like antennas.
Yeah, or antennas. Yeah, they were antennas that, like, could, like, choke you.
It was weird.
Yeah.
They might have been claws if they could choke you. It was...
It looked like antennas, though.
It was strong enough to kill a man.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I can say. But, definitely check it out. It's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're on day 3.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, in a... very good movie, another William Castle film, and it's another gimmick. So it's weird how we had 3 of the William Castle films kind of stacked on top of each other.
Well, because they all came out around the same time.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Some of you might have actually seen this. You might have actually seen the remake of this. It's actually pretty popular. 13 Ghosts, 1960.
Yes.
Yeah, 1960.
I believe so.
And, I saw the remake before I ever saw the original 13 Ghosts. To be honest, a couple years ago is when I first learned they actually had an original of that. And I was so shocked. I was like, what? They have, like, a black and white, cheesy version of that horrifying, gory, ghost-haunted house movie that I loved as a child. And when we watched it, it was actually very different. Mm-hmm. You actually saw the original before you saw the remake, but for me it was very different because in the original, it's like an actual house. It's like like an old house, like a mansion that's haunted with, 12 spirits that are vengeful. But the remake, most of you already know, it's like they're trapped in like a glass house and the walls move and they have all these spells written on the walls to keep the ghosts, inside within the walls so they won't harm anybody. Mm-hmm. It's very different.
Oh, yeah.
And I love the little kid in that movie.
He's so naive.
It's like, alright, he's naive and he's obsessed with like ghosts and like horror and stuff, but he's like 8 or 9 years old.
Yeah. But
like he's also like kind of creepy and very sinister at the same time, but in a very comical way.
How?
Alright, I'll give an example. When they were going to do the seance in the movie...
Oh, he was like, is someone going to get killed?
He was like, I want to go. Boy, what if somebody gets murdered?
Oh, yeah.
And he said it, like, really excited. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I just think he was, like, a very curious kid.
Oh, yeah. He was definitely a curious kid.
Yeah, he made the whole movie, I think.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And, yeah,
he was... And the other person... didn't really make the movie, but she definitely made it a little more interesting, and it's very interesting considering how they described her and everything, and all that.
The maid that came with the house.
Exactly, the maid that came with the house. She was actually also the Wicked Witch of the West in the Wizard of Oz
movie, yeah.
And they even say she looks like a witch, and the kid references her as a witch and all of that. And I think they even basically say that she is a witch at the end, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Like she's like a medium or something. But but it's funny. Like at the beginning of the movie, when they get the inheritance of the house from the uncle, the lawyer comes and visits, and the kid is like roller skating outside on the patio, and the kid's like, go ring the doorbell. I bet you a witch will pop up. So, yeah, they basically reference her being a witch throughout the whole film.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny.
Oh, it's hilarious. And the other thing that's... and I wonder if this was a bit of an homage that I just thought of. And even... not really, but her look kind of is similar. Do you think, oh wow, I'm drawing a blank and we watched it last night. From American Horror Story.
Who?
The maid.
Moira?
Moira. Do you think Moira was a bit of an homage to her?
To the witch, maybe?
Yeah.
No.
No? You
don't
think so?
Okay. No, I don't think so. Because she wasn't a ghost.
I know that, but...
I mean, it would be different if, like, you know, Billie Dean Howard, you know, was
That's
a maid
true.
in the house or something like that. But, for those of you who don't watch American Horror Story, Billie Dean Howard is a medium as well. Kind of like in,
yes.
Yeah. But, I would have to rate it a 5.
Oh, definitely.
13 Ghosts.
Yeah.
You know, it became one of my very favorite classic horror films because it had comedy in it, too. And I really love comedy in my horror. I might be one of the few people who like it.
I like it.
I know you like it.
That's another one that I would like to see with the gimmick, because the big gimmick is that it turn when the screen turns blue, you've got two different lenses. One if you believe in ghosts, and one if you don't. And
they're both different colors. One's red
and one's blue. Like, I wonder, like, how it would be would it change anything? Like, if you put it on each?
And that's what I was saying. Like, after we watched the film, I was like, I wonder if I could actually find a pair of those glasses online, but I was like, I doubt it.
I doubt it would work with, like, a digital copy or anything like that.
I don't think it would, and I would love to honestly watch that in a movie theater.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, with the glasses. Yeah. That would be really fun. But, this one did not star Vincent Price like most of the William Castle films did, but it was still still really good.
Oh, yeah.
And if you like the remake, you may like this one, too. I'm gonna warn you, it is different than the remake. Like, it's not gory.
It's not gory, it's not, it doesn't have all the tricks that, the remake had and all of that. It's much more, down to earth.
Yeah.
I guess you could say.
Yeah, it is. That's actually a really good way to describe it. But the next one we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, Psycho.
Yes, Psycho. The original slasher.
1960 Psycho. Not Vince Vaughn. I don't even want to... You've heard about that, right?
What? They made a remake of Psycho?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Vince Vaughn is Norman Bates. Alright. And I have no words for it. Anyway, moving on. It doesn't... Yeah, no.
That doesn't count.
No. Starring Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates and loosely based on Ed Gein, Butcher of Plainfield in some way or another. Mm-hmm. It was, actually when we were doing our prep work, I was like, I could actually see that when I saw it. I was like, because, he's into taxidermy and everything.
Exactly.
And, that's actually really interesting, too, because, when we watch it, it shows, a little bit of Norman's personality, and it shows, like, kind of how he is before we see him, kind of snap. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And we know he's apparently into sewing up dead things. And it's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it is weird.
He actually goes on a little story about it when he's talking to Mary.
Oh, yeah.
In the hotel.
Yeah.
He's always like, a man's got to have a hobby.
Yeah.
That's what she said. And I guess she's right.
But, yeah, he's got a hobby, all right.
It's actually also based on a novel by Robert Bloch. And I really wanted to read it ever since I saw Psycho. And you actually showed me Psycho. Mm-hmm. I didn't see it prior. And I actually really, really, really loved it. It started, like, when I saw it, like, it kind of started off slow, but then I watched it a second time, and I really loved it. And I like how it's got a lot more story to it than your average slasher film.
Well, that's the thing, like, it's technically like it's technically the beginning of the slasher genre, but as compared to modern slashers, it's not anywhere near it because it's like, I'd say 80% story and 20% slashing. Because, I mean, the only death really is hers.
No. There's a few others.
Who else?
The detective.
Oh, right. And,
I actually believe that's it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, just
her and, Detective Arbogast.
Yeah.
It was kind of like it started off as like, a crime story, like her stealing the money and everything. And then it, like, right in the middle, it meets at the middle and turns into this, slasher film. Mm-hmm. And then, like, kind of like a mystery film, too.
It basically has 3 stories in one.
Yeah, the first story with her stealing the money, and then a slasher story when it meets in the middle and, goes to him killing her in the shower and everything. And I know I'm not spoiling anything there because even people who haven't seen Psycho know about the infamous shower scene. Yes. I would think. Anyway. Yeah. And then it turns into, like, this mystery film.
Yeah, where'd she go and everything.
And it has her sister and her boyfriend actually looking for her and posing as a couple staying in a hotel just to find her, which actually really reminds me a lot of the story in Halloween 3. Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot.
Yeah, it does.
And we'll actually talk about that next week. But I would have to give it a 5 out of 5. Anthony Perkins is a really good actor, and he really sells it as Norman Bates.
Oh, yeah.
He's, terrifying, and, like, his acting was...
That creepy smile.
Nobody else could pull that off, I don't think.
No.
And, like, I've heard, like, people have told me, like, to watch Bates Motel.
Mm-hmm.
It shows a lot more of his backstory, but I've been kind of, like, skeptical
I heard
about
that they
it.
changed a lot.
That's kind of why I'm still skeptical about sitting down and watching it.
Like, didn't they change Psycho itself? Because I think someone told us that he doesn't even kill her.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't kill her, and she's actually played by Rihanna, the pop artist. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take a hard pass on that.
Yeah, I heard it was, like, a good story, like, backstory for him and everything, but, like, I would have to agree. It's kind of like how I tried to watch Gotham, and they changed a lot in that. Mm-hmm. And I just couldn't do it. Yeah. But, yeah, I love Psycho. I want to read the book really bad. It sounds interesting. I like to read, like, novel versions of horror films. Like, when I read The Exorcist, I was blown away by it.
And you still haven't finished it.
I know I still haven't finished it. But I'm getting there. It's a pretty long book.
How long is it? Like, over, like 1,300 pages or something?
Thereabout.
Thereabout.
But it's good. I would rate it a 5 out of 5.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. But we have day 4 now, and we were talking about this a little bit. The Birds 1963.
This movie, first off, the whole plot line of it is just completely ridiculous.
It's interesting, but it's like, why is this happening?
Well, no, I'm not even... Well, why is it happening on both fronts? One, why is she going out of her way to do this for someone who, like, she apparently completely despises, and then she ends up getting with him?
Yeah, well, basically. So the movie, starts in a pet store with this woman, and this man meets her there and thinks she works there, and so she plays it off like she does work there and starts to help him out, trying to find lovebirds. He wanted lovebirds, is that it?
Yeah.
And he quickly found out she didn't work there when she reached in a cage and tried to grab a bird and it flew away. Mm-hmm. But she was like, I guess she had like a reputation of being a bad girl who always, you know, she always, like, got in trouble, and she was always in the paper for getting in some kind of trouble, and he basically did that just to mess with her.
Yeah, yeah.
Saying, like, so how does it feel to be on the other end of a gag?
Mm-hmm.
And so they end up hating each other, and she decides to have lovebirds specially ordered for him, and she even goes to the trouble of driving to San Francisco.
San Francisco? Well, she was driving from San Francisco to another area that was a couple of hours away.
Yeah, and then she went to the trouble to order a boat and take these lovebirds to this man's sister whose birthday it was.
Mm-hmm.
But they hate each other. They completely hate each other. As a matter of fact, she said she loathed him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I guess it's just an unspoken thing. I don't know.
I don't know. That whole thing, it was just crazy on its face, and then, like, the whole movie is just crazy because it's basically a movie of killer birds.
And we don't really know why they start
killing people. We never find out why they're doing this.
Like, I don't know. I guess they got tired of taking shit from people.
I guess.
Like, I don't know. If you were a bird, would you attack somebody?
Probably. But I have a brain, so...
So what are you trying to say? These birds are stupid?
Yes. Haven't you heard the term bird brain?
So you're saying, like, they're dumb and, like, that's why they're attacking people because they're just stupid?
Yeah. Although birds have been known to be a little bit of dicks. Like, when I got shat on by a damn pigeon at the Statue of Liberty.
Well, that's him, not me, guys, so I'm not over here getting shit on by birds.
Damn pigeons. Flying rats.
Oh my god. Anyway, thank you for that, by the way.
You're welcome.
Yeah, the movie's, it's good, though. It kind of reminds me of, like, when they're boarding up the house to keep the birds from coming in. It kind of reminds me of Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, yeah.
And I can tell you can't stop laughing right now.
Well, I'm also just thinking about that one scene where the birds are just sitting outside of the school, just waiting. Just sitting there waiting for the children to leave. Like, come on. We're just gonna wait here all day. We don't care.
What about the end of the movie when, like, they're done terrorizing them?
Oh, and they just let them through?
Yeah.
This is one of those movies that it's iconic and it's a classic and everything, but it makes no damn sense on so many different levels. I mean, nowadays it's one of those movies. I mean, what was the other movie we talked about where, like, nowadays you just sit there and laugh at it? Oh, Invisible Man.
I loved Invisible Man, though. Like, I love the birds and I
love the birds and I love Invisible Man, but they're two of those movies that you just sit there and you're just laughing the whole time because it's so ridiculous.
Ridiculous and amazing, all rolled up into one.
Indeed.
Yeah, so I would have to rate The Birds 5 out of 5. It was a lot of fun and kept my interest all the way through.
Completely disregarding all the plot hole issues of it, I'll have to give it a 5 out of 5 as well. Yep. It's funny, but it's one of those movies that it's just so ridiculous that you just have to sit back and enjoy it and watch it and laugh.
Yep. So it's perfect for October. Definitely check it out. I loved it. It's Alfred Hitchcock and filmed in black and white and was colorized. So like if the picture looks a little weird, that's probably why. But yeah. Now we have going into Night of the Living Dead, and as I said before, the birds kind of reminded me, like when they were boarding up the house of Night of the Living Dead. So this is actually perfect.
Yeah.
Came out in 1968 and was written and directed by George A. Romero, and also, John Russo helped him write it, and it was the very first flesh-eating zombie film.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't originally called zombies in the film.
Oh, yeah, they were called ghouls.
Flesh-eating ghouls.
Oh, okay.
And that's pretty, it's pretty creepy. I find that scary. They didn't really have a name for them. They just called them ghouls.
Mm-hmm.
And, now when you look at them, you do resemble what you would think of when you thought of the word ghoul.
Mm-hmm.
They, blood dripping down out of each corner of the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Flesh hungry, just scary.
The weird thing about Night of the Living Dead, and it's kind of interesting how zombies have basically, I mean, they've progressed and regressed at the same time throughout history. These zombies, they use tools and everything.
Yeah, there is a scene at the beginning where she's in the car and
he's using a rock and
he's trying to break open, or the part at the end where I guess they just had enough and they went inside and they start picking up shit and they start beating on the house. Dude, they had enough.
Yeah.
They're like,
they're like, we're done. We're getting in this damn house.
This is bullshit. We're hungry. We're coming up in this
We want
damn
your
house.
flesh.
And it was actually Night of the Living Dead is one of the first horror films I ever watched. I saw it when I was 4, and it was thundering outside, thunder and rain, and we were watching it because the cable was knocked out, so we put on Night of the Living Dead. And it was perfect.
Did you become like Tina?
I became scared. It scared me when I was a kid.
Do you know what I'm referencing?
Yes, and no, I didn't start having sex dreams
about
zombies.
No. Remember she had scary dreams about the zombies at first, but then as she grew up, they morphed into sex dreams?
No, I didn't. And if that happens to you, you're not normal. To be blunt. Sorry. And, alright, what would you rate Night of the Living Dead? I'd give it a 5.
Oh, definitely.
George A. Romero, he's the king of zombies. Mm-hmm. Can't go wrong with George A. Romero.
No, that's Mantan Moreland, who's king of the zombies.
And there's our horror joke for you guys. We talked about King of the Zombies last time. But I would have to give it a 5. It's, it's a great classic film. It's, gory. And that one part where the zombies are fighting over the intestines.
Oh, God. What? It's funny.
You got a messed up sense of humor, but I love it.
Of course I do.
But, day 5 we're on now. Wow. Mm-hmm. We're speeding through this a little bit. Last House on the Left, 1972, and this one actually made a lot of people sick when it came out. I think I remember reading it actually disturbed people. And
it is pretty disturbing.
It is disturbing, and it's not your average horror film. It's not it's not technically about slashers or ghosts or getting possessed by demons.
I would say it's one of the first, at least in my thought. If you can think of one earlier, let me know. But it seems like it was the first truly realistic horror movie.
I would have to say so. It's they describe it as an exploitation horror film. Mm-hmm. And it was based on a true story, too.
Mm-hmm.
But
exactly.
And even it has a disclaimer at the beginning, the names and stuff were changed to protect people. Yeah. And, to know something, when we watched it, to know something like this actually happened to 2 girls is actually,
pretty crazy.
It's crazy and it's terrifying, and it just makes you feel like, the world isn't so safe. Mm-mm. And, I felt bad for them when I was watching it. I wasn't, it wasn't that I was terrified, but I was on the edge of my seat and just, kind of rooting for, them to escape so much.
But then, you kind of get 2 stories in one here.
That is actually true, yes.
So they do kind of get their comeuppance.
They do, and really, well deserved.
Oh, yes.
Might I add. You don't rape women.
Nope.
And you don't... They said they took a life of a German Shepherd, remember? Mm-hmm. You don't kill animals.
Nope.
And you definitely don't do it in front of the girl's house.
Mm-hmm.
That right there.
Yeah.
To know that you live right there.
And then they proceed to go into said house, and the parents get them.
And that is just bittersweet. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
They got what they deserved.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that was my kid, I would have done the same thing. Do you remember the cops walked in at the end? What do you think, and this is a good question, what do you think they did? Like, after they saw him chainsawing one of the killers, the father. I
don't know, honestly. I mean, they were probably brought in for questioning, but then after they found out what happened, I'm sure I would hope that they were let go.
Yeah, because technically they came into their house.
Exactly.
And they protected what was theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And they were wanted for murder anyway.
Exactly.
So they probably would have been electrocuted, executed, something like that. Were you disturbed when you first saw it?
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit?
Yeah.
It was disturbing.
Oh, yeah.
It was. I was shocked when I first saw it, you know. When I first saw it, I was kind of scrolling when FearNet was still around.
Mm-hmm.
It was... I don't think you've ever seen, like, anything on FearNet.
No.
But when FearNet was still around, I was on demand, and it had Last House on the Left on there. And I saw that it was Wes Craven's very first film that he ever wrote and directed.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, ooh. And, me being a fan of Wes Craven, I saw, before that, prior to that, I saw, Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream, all that stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. So I put it on, and I was shocked that he wrote something like that.
But, I mean, honestly, it's not really all that shocking. We talked about it, while we were watching it. It's pretty crazy how Wes Craven can go from, Last House on the Left, like we talked about, was one of the first, truly realistic horror movies.
Hills Have Eyes.
Hills Have Eyes, could also be kind of realistic, but it also does have a, sci-fi feel to it to an extent because of the, the concept of it, where they're, like, deformed because of a because of an atomic blast. And then you have Nightmare on Elm Street, which is completely in the world of fantasy because, it's in the dream world and everything. But then he goes back and goes to do Scream, which is another thing that could easily actually happen. And is in the realm of realism.
That's true. Somebody could easily do what the killer did in Scream.
Exactly.
I mean, probably not easily, but it could be done.
It could be done, yes.
But yeah, I would have to give it a 5 out of 5.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, it was gritty, it was awesome, and it was, it was one of those very chromatic films to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And these people, they start out as, they're horrible people, and they murder these girls, and they finally get what's coming to them in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on, we have The Exorcist, 1973, and this is a very famous one.
Oh, yes.
And another personal favorite. I saw this one when I was 8 years old, as messed up as that sounds.
This is another one that, it's still iconic, it's still, it's still scary, but, time and the changing of society has kind of diluted it.
That's true. Yeah, true.
Because, back then, you've heard stories of, like, people fainting and whatnot, and
a lot of people, I think, left the theater,
yeah.
I heard.
Yeah. But now, when you watch it, it's like, certain parts are
certain parts, and then other parts are like...
Are really freaky.
Freaking cringeworthy.
Yeah.
But in a good way.
Yes.
The screenplay was actually written by the author of the book, which I think is pretty cool, and I thought the movie was really close to the book. I watched the movie first, but I read the book right after and did a little compare and contrast, and while the book is, more messed up, obviously. They couldn't do what a lot of what they did.
Yeah, there are certain things that they couldn't do, especially back then. Certain things that they couldn't do from the book.
But what I liked about it was it actually showed, in the book it showed what the priest was feeling, not Father Karras.
Yeah.
But the main priest.
Yeah.
And how he felt when he walked in the house. And if you watch the movie without reading the book, and when you first see him walk into the house, that the very last exorcism part of the movie, the Father Karras goes to him and says, "Don't you want to hear the background? Don't you want to hear about, the mental part of it and everything?" He says, "Why?" And they say in the book the reason because of that is because he battled the very same demon, and when he walked into the house, he felt that demon's presence and knew what he was in for. Because that very exorcism by that very demon almost nearly killed him. And, just knowing what he feels, just seeing what he feels when he walks in, the fear and everything, and knowing, it just you wonder how really powerful this demon is. Yeah. He takes over this really sweet little girl. She starts out so sweet, and then metamorphs into this disgusting, vile devil child. And that's one thing I think they did really well in the film.
Oh, yeah.
How they, portrayed her so sweet at the beginning, and then just her demeanor, how it just starts to change very slowly, and it actually shows the progression of it. Of how she goes from sweet, and then it just, goes up the scale. And, what did you think when you first saw it, when I first showed it to you?
It was freaky.
Were you a little shocked?
Yeah. Should I tell my really creepy Exorcist song story?
This one is afraid of the theme song of The Exorcist.
Okay, so when I was in 6th grade, at the dance class, the dance room was down in the basement. And for whatever reason, we were doing dances to the Exorcist theme. And
that's weird.
I don't know why, but yeah. So like after the class was over, we were leaving class, going, the bell had rung, we were going to our next class, and I guess I forgot something downstairs. And I go down to go grab it, and it's completely empty. And this is in a basement, mind you. And I go down, and, I think I actually had to go to the bathroom. And there was a bathroom, in the back of the area. So for whatever reason, I decided that was the closest bathroom. So I went down there, went all the way into the back, went to the bathroom, and as I was coming out, the theme just suddenly started playing. And this is in a basement, in a dark area, and it's creepy as hell. And yeah, just no.
Why were they doing dances to The Exorcist?
I don't know! I don't remember.
Because that's just, I'm just imagining that in my head, and it's the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why we were doing it to the Exorcist theme.
That just seems like it's, something you did because you were bored.
Well, the teacher might have been bored that day or something.
That teacher was messed up.
Yeah.
I would have to rate it a 5 out of 5.
Oh, definitely.
Especially the book was really good. I loved it. And, I would have to, I would love to read it again, honestly. The book. Have you ever read it?
No.
You should. It's really good. And anybody who also hasn't read it out there, definitely check it out. And the movie, if you haven't. Now we're on day 6. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974. Infamous Leatherface.
Should we talk about what we watched prior to that? Do a little review on that?
Oh yeah.
And talk about how it changes our views on Leatherface.
Oh yeah, we actually before that we watched the 2017 Leatherface prequel. It's Texas Chainsaw Massacre prequel, like I just said, and it's like the backstory, like the origin of Leatherface and how he came to be Leatherface. And it starts off with him as a kid, and, you know, it shows how he actually didn't really want to kill people. Started off not wanting to actually kill people like the rest of his family.
Yeah, it definitely made Leatherface a much more sympathetic character.
And he actually, he was not really a normal person, but he wasn't, like, monstrous at first.
Yeah, and it changed. I don't know if they really claimed that he was, or people just assumed he was, but it changed the assumption that he was mentally challenged.
It seemed like he was just driven crazy.
Yeah.
Like, he saw all this violence on the road and everything when him and the nurse were kidnapped by those mental patients.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Leatherface was, spoiler alert, he was a victim.
Mm-hmm.
He was a hostage. And that's weird.
Yeah.
And he was actually scared. And honestly, he was a big softy
in
it. He was a gentleman.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, during the one scene where the mental patients they were trying to make the nurse undress, he stood in front of her so they wouldn't have to see her naked.
Mm-hmm.
To, kind of like, obtain her modesty.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what? Leatherface is a gentleman. That is so sweet. And he actually looked normal at first. And we saw, and it showed why he wore the faces.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it wasn't just because he was nuts and liked wearing people's faces, like I originally thought. I'm not going to spoil it, just in case you haven't seen it, but I would have to give that a 5.
Oh, definitely.
It was really good. I saw a lot of mixed reviews about it, but I actually really enjoyed it and explained a lot.
Oh, yeah, it did explain a lot.
He even had the hitchhiker from the original as a little kid. It showed that weird scar on his face, which I guess was a birthmark.
Yeah, I guess it is a birthmark.
But diving into the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1974, directed by Tobe Hooper and written by both Tobe Hooper and Kim Hinkle, the character was loosely based on Ed Gein, kind of similar to Norman Bates, but more messed up. And I think I would have to say he would be a better comparison to Ed Gein.
Probably,
because of the things they found in Ed Gein's house was very similar to Leatherface's.
Mm.
And I think it's an exact character, portrayal.
Oh, yeah.
And when I first saw Leatherface, I actually saw the fourth one first. When I was a little kid, I saw The Next Generation. A lot of horror fans hate that one, but I actually enjoyed it. As kooky as it was. Mm-hmm. You've never seen it.
No, I have not.
You need to see it.
Okay, fair enough.
It's good and bad all wrapped into one. I love this movie. It's entertaining, and Brandon watched it in his film class. That's another one he watched, but this is one I saw prior. I love, the road trip aspect of it and the humans made out of barbecue.
Mm-hmm. You mean barbecue made
yeah,
out of
you know
humans.
what I mean. Reversed. We are reversing it now. Thank you very much for that. There was my second blunder for the night. I probably had many more. Sorry, I've been a little tired all day. I've been a little sick. So forgive me. Alright, what did you think of it when you first saw it, though?
I thought it was pretty crazy.
I thought it was, too.
I thought it was very crazy, actually.
It didn't really scare me when I was a kid, though.
Really?
No.
Huh.
I don't know why. Nothing really scared me that much. It was weird. But, this is one of those that I would have to give a 5 to.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it actually, it didn't scare me as a kid, but, if you watch it certain points now, it's actually pretty freaky.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's just, the concept of this, scary guy wearing human faces chasing you with a chainsaw.
Yeah, I
mean,
mean,
terrifying.
This is another one that is freaky because it could happen. I wouldn't be surprised if there's, a crazy family in Nowheresville and, in some backwoods area of the country, killing people and no one even knows about it.
Yeah, and remember in the second one, they the family, I guess, was very good at covering up their tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And, anything that happened, they took, they cleaned up all the evidence because apparently there was no records of anything like this ever happening after the main girl reported it to the police after.
Mm-hmm.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
But, I would have to give it a 5 out of 5 skulls.
Oh, yeah.
Now we're on to The Omen, 1976. And it was directed by Richard Donner and written by David Seltzer. And this one, if you haven't seen it already, it's about the Antichrist.
Yep.
No more, no less.
Yep.
Damien is a little shit. I mean, if you watch this, he's the creepiest little kid you will ever see.
Oh, yeah.
Like, everything about him is creepy, and, when I first saw it, the one part that actually stuck with me, and it's weird because not a lot of things freaked me out when I was younger, but one part actually stuck with me was when, the housekeeper committed suicide and was like, "It's all for you, Damien."
Oh, yeah.
That part actually stuck with me for, many years after I saw that. And it's just one of those, it's one of those things that it's it's real.
Uh-huh.
Remember, what Adam Green and Joe Lynch were talking about
with Friday 4, with the moment where he's saying, he's killing me.
Yeah, that just certain parts in certain horror films feel so real that it actually adds to that fear. And, it's basically, these parents adopt this kid. I think the mother has, trouble having kids at first. Mm-hmm. And so they adopt this kid, and it turns out to be the devil's son. So she starts to believe something's wrong with the kid, and, the father's not really believing it yet. And you also have this priest trying to warn him, and he's not listening. The events that happened in the film, he could have probably, at least, attempted to stop at first. Yeah. Things wouldn't have gotten as bad as they did.
And then you also have the photographer who's also trying to help stop him.
Yeah, and he ends up dying gruesomely. And it's just, it's also a very sad story. He loses his wife, he doesn't have anybody, and it's because of this kid.
Yep.
And at the end of the film, it has him trying to, kill this kid, and it's this part's really real. That's another part that felt really real.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't, wow, in this film, he's really trying to stab this kid. Mm-hmm. And it's just, it's crazy.
Oh,
yeah. Would that fly nowadays in film?
I
don't know what's PC culture.
Yeah, I don't know.
But, what would you rate The Omen?
I would definitely give it a 5.
I would definitely give it a 5. I've seen the remake. It had Cotton Weary in it, playing the father from Scream.
Yeah, I know.
But I like this one better. I would give it a 5 out of 5 as well. Now we're on day 7. The Last. And then it starts with The Hills Have Eyes, which is another Wes Craven movie, and it came out in 1977. And it was, this one disturbed me a little bit.
Yeah,
we watched it for the first time this year.
Mm-hmm. This one was, pretty crazy.
This one seems, really real.
Mm-hmm.
When we were watching it, really realistic.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like The Last House on the Left.
Yeah.
This one I thought was actually scarier than Last House on the Left.
Really?
I actually saw the remake first. The remake is gorier and a little scarier.
What, for Last House on the Left?
No.
Oh, for Hills Have Eyes.
Hills Have Eyes.
Oh, okay.
when I first saw this, it had the same level of fear, but it felt, because it's, you know how old films have that creepy feel to it, this one definitely did.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to admit that I got really upset when
the dog died.
When Beauty was killed. Yeah, they had 2 German Shepherds named Beauty and Beast. It's actually really clever.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt really bad for Beauty.
Mm-hmm.
That upset me. Actually, it took me a while to get over that one.
You care more about animals dying than humans.
I'm sorry. I love my animals. But I know we haven't seen the remake yet, but what would you rate this one?
I would give it a 5.
I would have to give it a 5 too. It's a long movie.
Oh yeah, it's long.
If you don't really like long horror films, then I don't think this one's probably for you. But it doesn't feel too long.
No, it's one of those movies
speed up
that
after a while.
It starts off kind of slow.
It does, but then it starts to starts to speed up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have to give it a 5 too, and you can't go wrong with Wes Craven.
No,
he's a genius.
Yep.
Rest in peace.
Mm-hmm.
You were awesome. One of my favorite directors. I just had to give him a quick shout out.
Mm-hmm.
Next is Dawn of the Dead, 1978, which is also another. If you absolutely have time to spare, it's a very, very long horror film.
Oh yeah.
It's very long. It's like over 2 hours long.
I think we watched the extended version, but even without the extended version, I still think it's very long.
It is, but it's really worth watching.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's really good.
The music in it is just hilarious.
It's got happy music in it.
Great.
It's like a zombie movie, and there's all this tragedy and everything, and gore,
and then you just suddenly have this very happy music playing in the background.
Well, even in the remake, in a scene when they broke into the mall, it had "Don't Worry, Be Happy" by Bobby McFerrin playing.
Yeah.
Oh God, but the very happy music. So it's not it's a little sad, but you have the happy music to kind of happy it up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It was directed by Giorgio Romero, and Dario Argentino worked on part of the music score along with an Italian band called the Goblins, and their music is actually really trippy sounding in the film. I thought it was really trippy with all the noises and everything. I was like, it really adds to the horror aspect. Some of the background music. Not the happy music that plays, but the overall background music is just awesome. And I like Dario Argento. Mm-hmm. I called him Argentino before. See, I've been sick all day, and this is what I get.
Yep.
Blundering bad. Hey, at least I call myself out on it, though. What can you do? Dario Argento is awesome, and this movie was actually, speaking of the Italian band, the Goblins, it was released in Italy before it was released in the U.S.
Yeah, which I thought was pretty crazy.
I thought that was pretty crazy, too. And actually, the original title for it is Zombie, which is actually spelled Zombi.
Yeah.
And then the original working title was Dawn of the Living Dead, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, instead of it just being Dawn of the Dead, it was Dawn of the Living Dead.
And while it's not really a direct sequel to Night of the Living Dead, that's only because I'm not for sure, but I believe the movie takes place
at or around the same time as Night of the Living Dead, because it's happening right at the beginning of what I would assume becomes a zombie apocalypse.
That's what I would have to say.
Because at the beginning there's still at least some civilization, since you still have a TV station working. It
shows things just getting crazy with the shooting and everything, with the apartment building. Yeah. It's just, it starts off really crazy, and another thing, I really want to see this too, the alternate ending.
Oh yeah, apparently there was supposed to be, the original ending to it was supposed to be that what were their names again?
Peter and Francine.
Yeah, Peter and Francine, the last 2 survivors, were supposed to commit suicide.
Instead of escaping together.
He was going to shoot himself in the head, and she was going to have her head chopped off by the helicopter blade. Sorry about that. Dog wants to get in on the action again.
That's okay.
But
he's got a lot to say.
Yes.
Sorry about that, guys.
But like I said, her head was supposed to be chopped off by the helicopter blade, and they actually do kind of foreshadow it a couple of times in the movie, with the one zombie getting his head chopped off by the propeller blade.
It was like the top of a scalp.
Yeah.
He got scalped by
and then with him putting the gun to his head. That's
true, yeah. He was gonna shoot himself. And I thought that would have been a very dark ending if they would have done that.
Oh, yeah.
And,
kind of reminds me of how Clerks was supposed to have a really dark ending to it.
With Dante originally supposed to get shot by somebody robbing the convenience store, yeah. I'm actually glad there was somewhat of a happy ending. I mean, the lady lost her husband, but she didn't really treat him that good anyway. If you watch the movie, it's like, okay, you're pregnant and you're sitting here drinking and smoking. I mean, it's a zombie apocalypse, I guess. She doesn't care anymore. Yeah. But she's all, like, he's trying to be nice to her, and she's just
being mean
bitchy
to him
the whole movie. It's like, okay, he has the potential to die any moment, treat the man with a little bit of decency, show him that you care about him. Yeah. I would have to give it a 5 out of 5.
Oh, definitely.
It's very different from the remake, and that one's very different from each other. The same, only completely different. Mm-hmm. That's, funny how that's possible, but it is. Especially with movies. Yeah, it was really good. It was entertaining. It was campy, cheesy. Mm-hmm. Had Ken Foree in it, which is, he plays the father in Kenan and Kel. And he plays the pimp in Devil's Rejects.
Oh, yeah.
And he also plays the guy who gets killed in the bathroom stall in Zombies Halloween.
Yep.
He's a good actor. Yes. I really like him. Oh, yeah. He also played in the remake of Dawn of the Dead. He played the newscaster.
Oh, right.
He quoted the same quote that he said in the original Dawn of the Dead. Yeah. When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. And that is a warning to everybody.
Great song by Murder Dolls.
It is. It really is. Love the Murder Dolls. Yeah, we are also huge metalheads. But, that was the end of our week.
Yeah.
It went really well.
Yeah, this was a fun week. Next week's going to be even crazier.
We got the 80s
We got the 80s and a bunch of slasher movies getting into the new Universal monsters.
Halloween to Friday the 13th.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
You can't miss it. It's going to be...
Chucky.
Oh, yeah. I love Chucky. Love me some Chucky.
And before we sign off, you had a little shout-out that you wanted to give.
I wanted to give a shout-out to one of my favorite actresses right now. She played in Holliston. And she played in Victor Crowley. She also played Ruby in The Hills Have Eyes. And she played in... No, like I said, she played in the new Victor Crowley. She played in Hatchet, too.
Yeah.
She played the girl... she was supposed to be, like, 13 or 14.
Mm-hmm. She was in that she was in that video.
Laura Ortiz, thank you for liking my post on Instagram. You are awesome. And speaking of Instagram, if you guys want, follow my Instagram. I am at GraveyardShiftXX, and we don't have an official Facebook page yet, but one should be up really soon. I will have a few articles coming out periodically on my website, bleedingmacabre.wixsite.com/bleedingmacabre. Go check those out every once in a while. I will be doing weekly reviews on the new episodes of American Horror Story, so, check that out if you're interested. Anything you want to add?
Nope, I think that's it. I mean, for those of you who listen to the other stuff on the W2Mnet, obviously check the Kickoff. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
And again, I apologize for my blundering. Alright, I'm Morticia.
And I'm Brandon Balor, and we'll talk to you guys next week. See ya.
Peace out.